And I think that's one of the great things about going down to Antarctica. I mean, we've all looked at books, we've seen images, we've seen documentaries, but actually going there for yourself is an incredibly powerful experience. And I think you come away with a strong sense of, what can I do to make a difference?
Welcome to tonight's fireside chat.
Yeah, big welcome from the Flights Club and so many great all Accor Plus Explorer members. So thanks so much for taking the time out to register. I'm Steve Pirie-Nally and the Icebergs behind me, and Steve Hui with a few icebergs behind him as well.
Welcome everyone. Antarctica. This photo is just from my trip down in January this year, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Such an amazing place.
And we're so lucky that I think we've got over 400 registered for tonight. I'm fortunate enough to have already been down to Antarctica with Peter Hillary, and we're so lucky to have his time and presence tonight to share so many incredible stories. We only have 90 minutes. I had 10 days with him and I only scratched the surface. So let's see what we can get through in 90 minutes. Where do we have Pete calling in from? I actually never know, because I've called Peter and he's been close to the North Pole before on a sat phone. But where are you calling in from today, Peter?
I'm in a little cabin out on the west coast of New Zealand. So
Starlink is trusted in moving out that part of foreign New Zealand.
It seems to be working.
Fantastic. Again, just a big thank you for all Accor Plus Explorer. One, for enabling us to do what we do over at the Flights Club, and also the podcast that we have, Always Class. And we get the opportunity to not only help so many Australian business owners, but also bring incredible experiences to life. And very fortunate, as I said, to have Peter Hillary as a Kiwi. Growing up, I kind of looked up to the awesome achievements that the family has had. That goes down 3 generations, and I think nearly a 4th generation shortly. And yeah, being down to Antarctica, it's an absolutely transformational place in so many ways, shapes and sizes and forms. And then Steve Hui, passing on to you to kind of share a bit of an introduction. So I'm more about the destination, when me and Steve connected and we joined forces, and Steve's all about the journeys. I'm all about creating the events and the experiences under the Flights Club umbrella. Thanks, Tamara, for pulling this all together. Over to you, Steve, to do a quick intro on your side.
Oh yeah, thank you. So yes, I'm all about the journey. So the whole idea is that our partner is Steve. He's all about destination. I'm all about the journey. And I believe that any trip you take shouldn't start when you get there. You should start when you leave home. So if you can flat the whole way through, have an amazing experience in a destination, say like Antarctica, come back all smooth. You never have to worry about taking more trips. You just got to find more time. So I'm really excited for you to join today. Like, I recently just came back from Antarctica around New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Spent 7 days in Antarctica, 2 days plus 2 days either side on the Drake end. This photo behind me is a photo that I took basically just on my Samsung phone. You can see how bright and how clear, and all the penguins around me over here. There's so many penguins, you cannot believe how many penguins are down there. But they're all happy penguins, maybe because a happy gave them a good start to everything. But you see, but fascinating place. So great opportunity to hear Peter about not just going to visit, but just all about Antarctica plus more.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Steve. And I think just to give some context in regards to how I met Peter, just over COVID, I've been in travel and experiences for 20 years. I always had this curiosity of getting to Antarctica in the 7th continent from an experience point of view. And I was like, who would be the best person to kind of come down and share wisdom and someone that's been down there? And I'm like, I wonder if Peter Hillary, who's his agent, how can I get in contact with him? It's actually peterhillary.com, and his cell phone number was on there. And I gave him a call, and I was expecting to get an EA or a speaker's agent or something. It was actually Pete that picked up the phone. And I was like, Peter, I'm not too sure. Like, I've just seen Lorde, the singer, had been down there, and she was saying, no, tourists shouldn't go down there. And I was like, a bit nervous. I just chartered a ship to Antarctica, and it's a rather hefty deposit to get down there. And he's like, Steve, this will be my 43rd time down to Antarctica, and you've got to see it to believe it. to save it. And those three sort of notions have kind of stuck with me, and hence why I want to go back, because every day down there on a ship on a seventh continent, it brings light to so many things, and paints around climate. But there's so much regeneration happening down there as well. So it's not all negative. There's great positive things. So when Peter said yes, and we took 160 people down 2 years ago, and we created this awesome after movie that I'd love to show you. It's a quick 3.5 minutes glimpse into a trip and an expedition down to Antarctica. So I'll just play that, and then we'll bring on the awesome Peter Hillary to share some stories, conversation, and then some Q&As at the end. So hopefully this sounds just comes through.
The first time I came here was foggy. I could barely see land. And then when the gate opened, I was like, where are we? Where is this? The temperature, the air, all this ice, and the silence. It's an experience that changes people.
Almost everywhere else you tour on the planet, the human history is reflected as the most important thing. You come to somewhere like Antarctica, the human history is the most insignificant part of this.
It feels like stepping back into a time before civilization, to who we were before there were cities full of people talking and before there was light pollution that blocked out the stars. And you can still hear the natural rhythms of a 24-hour day.
We were in a kayak, and all of a sudden we heard a trickle of water. It turned out to be a glacial fall. 4 of us put our hands underneath to experience the purity of the essence of the water of life. I mean, where else going to experience that?
We realize how big and beautiful this world is beyond what we could imagine.
What I've gained from this is a return of a piece of my own humanity that I didn't know was missing.
When you take a trip with Insider Expeditions, it's like a refueling of the soul.
This ship is incredibly well run.
It's so efficient. It's not like you have to think. They have jackets hung up for you. There's always like 3 people there to grab your hand. Like everything's super safe.
A full day is filled with physical and spiritual elements. You may spend the morning in a Zodiac boat exploring and seeing whales. Then coming back for lunch where you meet people who have major impact around the world, whether it's in business or in stewardship.
Stewardship's this concept of you don't own anything, you're just the caretaker.
This place is still in the Ice Age, but it is starting to break up. So building a community of people trying to make a serious difference, it's uplifting.
There's blockchain specialists, environmentalists, outdoors people, investment bankers, entrepreneurs, coaches, futurists. It's a really dynamic world.
And we all come together towards the single goal of saving what we have seen out there.
The cruise line has gone to extraordinary lengths to have the least impact, less than, I think, about 1% of heavy diesel ships and things like that.
People can very quickly go, well, if you're really worried about the environment, should you actually get on a ship and sail down to Antarctica? But when people come to a place, it triggers one of the most important things. It's human emotion. That's what's going to galvanize you.
My definition of stewardship has shifted from this place of duty to it being an act of love.
That was reassuring to know that, okay, we can do this.
The goal is to keep people connected and start to form movements.
With the stewardship program, we will be exploring many other parts of the world.
Look at this vessel. Look at what is possible when you collaborate.
It's like the most amazing experience I've ever had. It makes me want to fight for it.
I'm not a scientist, but I'm keen to help. Maybe that's the answer.
Well, there we go.
Wow.
Would love to get in the chat just one word or sentence on that. I've probably seen that over 1,000 times, and it still gives me tingles every time because of the people, the experience, and obviously having Peter down there. Where for all the Kiwis and obviously rugby fans to have Sir Graham Henry down there as well, and just some great leaders and a diverse group of people from 20 countries. I think, yeah, we're on a explore call. I think that's the power in the container of Antarctica. So enough about what we've done. Over to the incredible Peter Hillary. And I've kind of set up this presentation or conversation into a bit of a timeline and going through Peter's extraordinary life. And I feel like there's many more chapters to go. Peter, welcome. Thank you so much and for finding time in the West Coast and finding it. Thank you. And I'd love to just do a bit of a quick intro for you as well, obviously, and then we can go through this timeline as well.
Well, thanks very much, Steve. It's great to be here, and it's great to be heading south with you again on this important mission. I can't think of anything more important, really, than stewardship. And it's like, in some ways, it's not even just stewardship of our planet, our environment, but, it's taking a conscious approach to how we run our lives. And what could be more important than that? But going to a place, and it certainly was a feature of that little video, there's something about when you go somewhere of how it affects you emotionally. It really goes to your heart and soul, and that's important. And I think that's what really brings out a sense of a connection, of advocacy from those experiences, and that's a really important part of it. But look, my life, I was brought up in the Ed and Louise Hillary family. We never quite knew where Dad was going to take us for the weekend or let alone the holidays. It was a very adventurous upbringing. And we, his children, just absolutely loved it. And it just became normal. And snow was a regular feature, whether it was in the Southern Alps of New Zealand, going up into the Himalayas, exploring the far reaches of Alaska. These sorts of places were where we were brought up and the experiences we had. But I think out of the over 50 expeditions I've been on, climbing on big mountains, it's certainly made me realize what an incredible place planet Earth is. And we have an opportunity to look after it, and we have an opportunity more than ever before to explore it and to really have those sorts of experiences.
Yeah, awesome, Peter. And yeah, that pretty much sums up that slide. T, are you sharing my slides, or do I need to share them again?
I just turned them off so everyone can see your lovely faces. So you will need to reshare them again.
No worries. Let's jump back in here. Here we go. So I just found out this as I was preparing some research, but a father, a son, a summit. I think this must be pretty memorable going back into to 1990. Yeah, can you share a bit about this story and kind of what led you to this? Must have been amazing.
Well, look, obviously growing up in the Hillary family, Everest was a topic. Not so much that my father would talk about it necessarily unless prompted, but it was just obviously associated with his reputation. I mean, he and Tenzing Norgay made the first ascent to Mount Everest. And when they did that, it's like really any new major achievement. It basically is an empowering step for everyone else. We can do more than we thought we could before. And look, I was brought up in a mountaineering family. I guess I did my apprenticeship as a young climber and eventually thought, I'd like to go and climb Everest myself. And when I stood on the summit in 1990, which was the first time I climbed Everest, to stand up there and actually have experienced what it was like for Dad and Tenzing, and seeing the Hillary Step, the just stunning exposures going down on each side of the summit ridge. It was an incredible insight into what they had done. And I think for me, it really meant that I understood this I'd heard for the first time really, really closely. And I think that's one of the things about going down to Antarctica. I mean, we've all looked at books, we've seen images, we've seen documentaries, but actually going there for yourself is an incredibly powerful experience. And I think you come away with a strong sense of what can I do to make a difference, whether it's just amongst your friends and family or even more broadly in terms of our responsibilities, our stewardship of the planet, of the way we go about our lives, all of those sorts of things. So you see, it all started with climbing mountains. And as I said, I've been on over 50 expeditions, climbing in different parts of the world, the 7 summits, the highest mountain on each of the continents, including down in Antarctica. We're not going to see Mount Vinson when we go down there because it's so far south. The closest human habitation to Mount Vinson, the highest mountain in Antarctica, is actually the American South Pole base. So it's 600 nautical miles from the South Pole. You're really in this very, very remote location. But I've also crossed Antarctica to the South Pole. It was an amazing expedition, just 3 of us hauling 200 kilogram sleds over the ice for over 2 months, a long, hard haul. And these are certainly stories that I'll be talking a lot about when we're down on the expedition, because they'll sort of mean even more when we've actually been there, when we've felt the cold, we've seen the extent of the ice, and you've really experienced what Antarctica is like. You'll relate to these sorts of things all the more. But there's something magical about being completely self-reliant. And in a way, that's one of the lessons I hope we take away from the experience of going down there. And when you're on an expedition skiing to the pole, you're on your own. Everything is up to you. Your navigation, your mental state, where you pitch your tent, how secure it is from the strong winds, the katabatic winds that blast down there on the polar plateau. And then, of course, how you look after yourself with hydration and nutrition so that the next day you can continue on in the same way that you've been going for days, weeks, months already. So these are certainly experiences I look forward to sharing with you about Antarctica, experiences in Antarctica, but actually while with icebergs all around. And of course, around the edge of the Antarctic continent, there is the magical nature of its wildlife. Because we go and land, you very rarely see anything, an occasional bird, but that's it. Whereas round the coast, we have the opportunity to see many different species of whales, killer whales, humpback whales, different species of seals, of course, many different species of penguins and other flying birds. It truly is an extraordinary experience. And every trip is different. As Steve mentioned, I've been down to Antarctica on expeditions, but also on voyages on ships like the one we're going on. I've been down there 43 times, and it never tires for me. It's just the most extraordinary experience. And in many ways, I think I'm feeding off the excitement that everyone on board has when they first see the ice, the first iceberg, and then vast areas of great ice shelves, glaciers, crevassed faces, and so on. It is an overwhelming experience because the fact is we are going to the Ice Age. Antarctica is still in the Ice Age. It doesn't mean that the climate change is not having an impact there, but Antarctica is still inundated with a kilometre up to 5 kilometres thick of ice, and that's the place we're going to. And An absolutely extraordinary experience. And I think it's the perfect place to have these discussions about what are our responsibilities in that little brief window of time that is a life, to leave it in good condition for the people who come after us, our kids, our friends' friends. Those are responsibilities that I mature, we realize they are all of ours, and it's how we basically manifest that is the true measure of the sort of people that we want to be.
Absolutely, love that, Pete, and really appreciate sharing the story. And as you mentioned, just a couple of highlights back to that experience for someone that was just running an expedition in Kimberley's with Nat Geo, I think it was, to travel from Darwin to Sydney to Santiago to Buenos Aires, and then rock up that same with 3 hours off the flight to then do a presentation for our 160 people, and then to jump on a charter flight the next day. I'm like, that was exploration in the air. So thank God you're flying.
When I'm sharing the energetic, the great positive energies of people like yourself, the whole group there, it really encourages dig deeper. Having a wonderful time in Buenos Aires, going out to that wonderful restaurant, and the atmosphere amongst the group is just amazing. We'll have that again, because the sense of anticipation, it's one of the magical things about any journey, is the anticipation. What's it going to be like? How am I going to go? That excitement was palpable, and we all felt it, and we all enjoyed it. And then, of course, before you know it, you're on the ship and you're steaming out into the Drake Passage. And that, believe it or not, everyone, that is one of the great moments of this trip. You're heading out into the Southern Ocean and down across the narrowest area of ocean to Antarctica itself. And it only takes a couple of days, but it's an absolutely extraordinary time. You really learn to get your sea legs. There's the conversations going on board, and the bird life is absolutely sensational. Albatrosses flying around the rear of the ship and other species really is an absolute treat. And then we start spotting the first icebergs, and that's where the excitement really gets going.
It is. It's and we were peeking through the clouds, and it was literally as per. So credits in regards to the video. So AI wasn't huge 2.5 years ago. None of that was AI generated or B-roll or anything. That was literally shot on our ship and was given to us as a gift from one of the actual travelers. We were like, "What's all this camera gear around?" And it was like, I think he said 12 terabytes of data that he captured on that trip, and that was just a snippet of the expedition. But we probably have a few people, and I'm no doubt this question is going to pop up, but a couple of questions. 84 days across. Did you have dogs back in the day pulling the sleds across, or was it all human powered?
No, about 30 years ago, the Antarctic Treaty Nations decided that there'd be no other wildlife brought down there, no other living creatures other than humans. And so dogs were excluded. And, so if you wanted to do long journeys, you had to, we call it man hauling, hauling your own sled. You're on skis, you're hauling the sled with everything you need, the fuel for your stove, your food that needs to cook really quickly, your sleeping bag and a tent. And really, what else do you need when you're skiing to the South Pole? You just need the sustenance. And, you really have to be out there, be independent, and just get on with the job. But it's certainly a long, hard haul. And it's not exactly like that on the ship we're going to be on, of course. We return to the comforts of these amazing expedition ships. The dining rooms, the gym, the auditoriums where we'll have our meetings and presentations. It's an amazing juxtaposition. It's a floating hotel that allows us to get off a couple of times every day and experience Antarctica. And it is an absolutely unforgettable experience.
And just on because again, back to the question of over tourism, which kind of pops up quite a bit, especially post COVID, especially the two areas that you spend a lot of time in, whether it's Nepal and the amount of people going to base camp and also climbing Everest. It's the next Instagram tick the box. Hence the question I first and foremost is like, should we be going down to Antarctica? I'd love to kind of get your thoughts and probably play back the conversation we had in regards to going down to Antarctica and the difference between a cruise ship of 3,500 people wandering past versus these specific ships that we're going on that are small, intimate, and getting into the smaller places. Like, I'd love to kind of get your sort of thoughts on that.
Look, it's always going to be a big act, but on the balance, it's better to have people on expedition ships like we'll be on, going to these remote places and making that piece of history your own. I think that's a really vital thing. We saw what happened in the 19th century and early 20th century, where, for example, the Southern Ocean, south of Australia and New Zealand and Chile, Argentina, and so on, was out of sight and out of mind. And what happened during that period? They took the extinction, virtually the extinction of whales and seals and many of the penguins in many locations, and no one knew about it because it was just the whalers, just the sealers who were down there. And I think the thing is, when you take people to a place like this, they're deeply impacted by it. Whether it's Antarctica, whether it's the Grand Canyon in the USA, whether it's into Fiordland in New Zealand, whether it's up to Kakadu, it has a deep impact on people. People feel connected to it, and they want it to be preserved, to be looked after, for us to demonstrate stewardship. And I think that's absolutely vital. And in fact, I think if we don't go there, then I fear for many of these places. And I think that is the great opportunity of journeys like this. It becomes a little piece of your own history, of your own experience, and you also learn how to, formulate ways to preserve it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Just keep on going for a while. I've got a couple of questions from the audience. I think I want to weave these in based on the slides that we're going through as well. What is the hardest logistics challenge of an Antarctica expedition, especially when we go back to the first few times that you did the expeditions on down there? And I know you shared a few of those the other day in regards to food preparation, fuel, but what are some of those hardest logistic challenges? And that was from Travis Brooks.
Okay. Well, thank you, Travis. I mean, that's a very interesting question because, it's really, the answer is really the same if you're climbing on a huge Himalayan mountain, an 8,000 meter peak. It's not the food. It's not the technical difficulty, the danger of the katabatic winds in Antarctica or the terrible storms in the Himalayas. It's actually the psycho-emotional stuff between your ears, the stuff that can make or break you and the expedition. And it's through that homesickness, the missing the people and the things that you love about where you come from, and putting perspective and maintaining your focus. Funnily enough, it is those psychological journeys that is the hardest thing about any expedition.
Wow. And you've done so many of them. COVID was an expedition and a journey for many of us here. But especially, I think, as an expedition, when you're going as a group, what are some of those things that when there's things that change? Like, I'm a pilot by trade, obviously, and having those checklists, both mentally, physically, to get people through the next day. Like, we're not talking about short.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is that a lot of these expeditions are long. Typically, high altitude Himalayan expeditions are about 3 months. You know, the time it takes to acclimatize, obviously going down to Antarctica, a lot involved in getting there, and it's a long way to go. You know, you got to remember Antarctica is about twice the size of Australia and covered in thick ice. I mean, the scale of this place is mind-boggling. And so you've really, you always got to keep your eye on the goal, which may be 2 months off, you know, but you've got to focus on the day and the place that you're in at that moment, because that's, in a way, that's breaking it down into steps. I through this day, or I can get through this hour. I'm just going to, you know, haul myself up this steep Himalayan face or this Antarctic glacier, just another 100 meters, and we'll review the situation then. And you go, look, maybe you can do it another 100 meters. And it's that sort of approach, which is the best way to get yourself through what are often very, very difficult, challenging expeditions, psychologically, emotionally, physically, in every respect.
And what keeps driving you? Like I've never met anyone that's so passionate about exploration. And you got back from the Swiss Alps, and for someone that is just so active, that I kind of look up to in regards to this continual strive for exploration. And has it changed? Has it become harder to explore years ago? Because I feel like there's not too many places that haven't been scratched, done, climbed, visited. Like, what keeps driving you around exploration?
You know, I think that's an interesting question, because we tend to see exploration in the terms of, you know, has it been done before? But the thing is, the question you should really ask yourself is, have you done it before? Have you climbed a particular mountain? Have you gone and climbed Denali in Alaska? Of course, hundreds of people have climbed it, but to have that experience, if you're a mountaineer, is just sheer magic. You're out there, you're dealing with incredible levels of cold and all the other features that make Alaska a very special place. And so it will be for us down in Antarctica. For every single person, almost all of them will be people who have not been to Antarctica before. And to go there and have an experience, particularly under the auspices of an expedition around stewardship, around taking responsibility, not just for Antarctica, but for our presence on the earth. And I know sometimes people say, well, that's all starting to sound a bit wishy-washy. I remember my father saying things like that. But, you know, when you think about it in terms of your own children or your friends, you want things to be good for them, not just for you. That's a critical part of every experience, and it's what you can do for others. That is, in many ways, I think, one of the great hallmarks that of your, and that you can leave as part of your own legacy. And it's certainly been a very important part for the Hillary family. We went to the Himalayas to climb mountains. We developed friendships, and we were asked by local people if we could make a difference. And we continue to do that. And it's something we really enjoy. Now, I see you've got that slide up there, the heading for the North Pole.
I do, from Earth to Moon to back again, and jeepers, would have loved to been. There's something on the icebergs up there with the North Pole, but you shared us obviously being able to go back there after this incredible experience with your dad and Neil Armstrong. Like, the conversations and the silence that probably happened out there would have been absolutely incredible. So again, love to kind of just play a snapshot back to there and what we kind of talked about climate in regards to what happens 40 years, where you stand one place 40 years ago to where you stand 40 years. Last year, I think it was, or a couple of years ago.
Yes, well, you know, I was very fortunate. 41 years ago now, I went to the North Pole on a small aviation expedition with Neil Armstrong, my father, Ed Hillary, And look, I mean, obviously an incredible experience, a lot of uncertainty. You know, can we land these small planes with skis on them on the floating sea ice? It was April, it was 40 below zero. We got there, but the key of it all was sharing time with these people. So, you know, sharing a couple of weeks in small Quonset huts up there in the Canadian Arctic before flying these aircraft to the North Pole was really the key. To be in the company of two of the great explorers of the 20th century, the first man to climb Everest and the first man to land on the moon. It was an absolutely extraordinary experience. But see, when we were there 41 years ago, it was April, so it was still springtime. And it was incredibly cold. Well, I had this of taking my son with me last year, just 40 years after going on that expedition with my father and Neil Armstrong. And Alexander came with me. We had Mark Armstrong, Neil's son, and we were on this extraordinary icebreaker, Le Commandant Charcot, and we made our way through the sea ice all the way to 90 North again. And of course, this was July. It was a different season, but the surface of the ice up there floating on the Arctic Ocean was totally different, covered in turquoise pools of water. You know, it is definitely thawing out in a massive fashion. And I've read scientists saying they expect over the next 10, 15 years, it's likely there will be ice-free years, summers, up there at the North Pole. And it's not difficult for me to imagine that. When we were at 90 degrees north, there were open leads of water. The ice flows were fragmented. And as I said, just covered in turquoise pools of water. We need knee-high gumboots, rubber boots, to be able to walk around on the surface of the ice. So things are changing, and it was an incredible experience to be back there again, to have my son Alexander, and to reflect on that expedition 40 years before with the greats of exploration, Neil Armstrong and Ed Hillary.
Oh man, what a combo! And then to be able to go back with Alexander, I do could join us on the next expedition and the stewardship that keeps on getting passed down. Alexander, Peter's son, is now the CEO, general manager of the Himalayan Trust, and the incredible work that continues to happen up in the Himalayas year in, year out is just absolutely incredible. So part of our investment going back down again is to work closer with the Himalayan Trust in regards to all the incredible work that's happening there. And me and Peter have been planning a trip, hence the 2025. It's now 2026. We will be getting to Nepal, and you guys will definitely be one of the first to find out about an expedition, or sorry, a trip or an experience to but just answering a few questions here, I think from Caroline in regards to that global warming visibly changing in Antarctica, and you kind of gave me the snapshot. It's a little bit different because there's mountains, it's not all ice, so it's not as visible versus what you experienced up in the North Pole. I actually found it was like regeneration down there. I was like, oh, I've never seen so much wildlife. And then maybe talk about the seasons in regards to Steve obviously went earlier in this versus at the end of the season when obviously we went on our last expedition. It's like two completely different trips and experiences, both as good as each other. So I'd love to kind of talk about that from a global warming perspective, how it's a little bit different down south versus north, and then also the seasons in regards to there's a lot of stories out there in regards to the best to go, and you're like anytime. So
well, there's lots of good times, but look, firstly, you know, climate change is certainly affecting down in Antarctica, and we will probably see evidence of this with huge tabular icebergs. And tabular icebergs are, as they sound, they're like tabletop icebergs. They're great chunks of ice shelves. And some of the ice shelves on the east coast of the Antarctic Peninsula, inside the Weddell Sea, have started to collapse. They've been there for tens of thousands of years, and they're breaking up and floating out to sea. And these are huge. We've pulled alongside one that was 5 nautical miles by 2 nautical miles. And many of you will probably remember a few years ago in the media, one that was 120 nautical miles, so a couple of 200 kilometers long, drifted out into the Southern Ocean and started to break up off the west coast of South Georgia Island. So the scale of these tabular icebergs, but what they tell us is that that these ice shelves are breaking up. So things are changing. But one of the extraordinary things you alluded to there is the wildlife down there, and it is spellbinding. I mean, the seals, the whales, the opportunities we'll have of seeing whales. So I would urge everyone, you get these big jackets, use them, be out on deck. Don't sit in the lounge enjoying all the creature comforts. Get out there when we're heading through some of the Bransfield Strait or the Gerlach Strait, and look out for whales, for blows, for fluking, flipper flapping, all of those wonderful antics we can expect out there, because it's going to go on all around us, whether you're out on deck or not. So that's the place absolutely to be, because the wildlife of Antarctica is rebounding thanks to the end of the whaling era. I know there are a couple of countries that are still doing some, but these species are slowly coming back, and it's just an absolute joy to be a witness to it. And I think it's one of the important things about our journey down there, to see that actually, if you largely just leave nature alone, it will regenerate and it will thrive.
I absolutely love that. And then, so talking about like start of season, because there's a few questions in regards to like what potentially happens at the start of the season, which generally starts end of October or November, where my wife was lucky enough to head down there, and it's more about penguin highways in the start, and then versus when we went down there, it's the full circle moment. So I'd love to, for the people that are listening, paint the picture between the start and also the end.
Well, the beginning of the season, so you're talking November, December. The penguins turn up on the peninsula, and they set up their little rookery, or they're waiting for the exposed rock to appear when they first arrive. So those early voyages, they'll see eggs laid, maybe the first little chicks, and then of course a progression of development and growth of the chick during the next couple of months. And we're there, the chicks will be really full size. They'll be fledging, so they'll be getting rid of their downy feathers and growing their waterproof swimming feathers before they too will have to take to the and head north as the winter comes in. Summer is brief in Antarctica, and most people are, Antarctica February, March. So we'll be down there at the end of the season, and it's an exciting time because all these creatures are getting ready for their migrations, and all the chicks are fully grown. So it's a really special time. Look, all of the times down there have merits, but this is a top time to be there.
Yeah, awesome. And I definitely remember. So when you're down in Antarctica, you're in nature and you're in their home. So obviously there's guidelines in regards to hopping off the ship for expeditions. There's zodiacs on the ship. And because we're on a smaller ship of maximum 90 cabins or 160 people, it means that we can get off the ship very quickly. So it's kind of a captain's itinerary. We kind of roughly know where and how we're pointed towards. But in regards to weather, days, etc., we can get off the ship very quickly, and sometimes twice a day to be able to get to 2 different locations as well. So jumping off and getting into your jackets, which are all provided for you, jumping in the Zodiacs, and you hop onto the peninsula, and that first foot that you take, you definitely feel like on another planet. But then all the penguins don't know who you are, and they're coming up to you, and some of them are trying to step on your feet. And obviously there's guidelines that you need to stay, but just got to stay put. And these penguins are very curious animals, and then being able to stand to see penguins take their first jump and waiting for the one to do the leap of courage, and then it's pretty special. So can't wait to get back down there. In regards to the big question, I think we probably had 40 of these that came through. The Drake Passage, Peter. And I know I had that nervous conversation with you, and seasickness. We've all seen the Instagram shot of the boat going like this and diving like this. I had the Drake Lake. We had a slightly big swell on the way back, but talk us through. We got there 12 hours ahead of schedule, so we got an extra day, which was wonderful. But yeah, seasickness.
Well, look, there are all sorts of weather on the Drake Passage, but mostly, and my 43 times in Antarctica, well, not all of them went over the Drake Passage, but, high 30s were certainly. You've got 3 or 4 meters of swell. These ships handle that very, very easily, and you'll rapidly adjust to the motion. They all have stabilizers, so it is actually a very comfortable trip. It is possible that we have the Drake Lake, and a disappointment, to be quite honest. It's flat seas, but as a consequence, all those fantastic albatrosses and the different species of petrels that are flying out there normally in the strong westerly winds of the Southern Ocean, they end up alighting on the sea. They like to fly in the wind. If there's no wind, they're on the sea, and you won't see the birds. So we want a bit of wind, so we get to see these extraordinary Southern Ocean avian travelers. It's one of the highlights of that crossing. But look, it is true there can be great storms that go through the Drake Passage. I've experienced a couple of, shall we say, boisterous crossings. But of course, the ship's captains, they're watching these storms, and they will always try, firstly, to leave ahead or behind to avoid some of the worst weather, and also it's the direction of the ship when again the captain can ease the motion of the ocean to make people feel more comfortable. So I think in a way it's one of the marvelous parts of the experience, crossing the Drake and arriving in Antarctica. The combination is truly extraordinary. So an important part of it.
We'll definitely get your narration across the Drake and the cabins beaming up with them to go across. But I asked the question where to find Peter on the ship is if it's slightly windy, go and find the windiest part, and Peter's probably out there spotting things before anyone else. So anyone that's coming down with us, let's play into the notion of leadership in the Himalayan Trust and this notion of stewardship, and obviously doing a bit of research around stewardship. And this is our second expedition under stewardship, and we're lucky to have the University of Tasmania actually doing a study with us. So we actually have a couple of researchers and scientists on the ship that if you're willing to participate, they're asking questions in regards to what you feel pre, during, and post, and we're participating in and enabling that study, hopefully over the next 10 plus years, this transformational travel and how it works and operates. But yeah, stewardship was kind of a new term that I found, and then literally it's what you and your family, 3 generations, soon to be 4, living, breathing, and amplifying throughout the world. And it's not just your side of the family. I was lucky to go to the Himalayan Trust, I think it was 70th or 75th anniversary, and just the amazing community that is around the Himalayan Trust doing this good work. So yeah, stewardship and what you're doing with the Himalayan Trust that has their sectors all around the world. So I think it's pretty cool.
Well, look, we're very committed to the work of the Himalayan Trust up there in the Himalayas. But, it's all about friendship, the people that you have these partnerships with, and really trying to make a difference. And I think that is actually, at the end of the day, is one of the most satisfying things that any of us can do to try to make a difference. Look, in our own lives, it's not just for others. But obviously, we want to make a difference for our own families, for our friends, but to leave the place perhaps better off than when we came to it. And we have that opportunity. And so I think it's an incredible opportunity, when we're down in Antarctica, to really contemplate what it means, make a difference to other people, but also to the environment that we all share. I think most of us see the importance of and the wonder of national parks and preserves. And, when you visit places like this, they have a huge impact on you. And how can we contribute to these places and make sure that they perhaps are even more safer than they, through various actions and strategies that we have. They're exciting opportunities, and these are that we'll discuss on the voyage down south about how each of us can make our contributions. I think if I was asked what are perhaps the most important things that any one of us can do, look, of course, we want you to be goal-driven. We want you to succeed. You've got to make a good living. You want to have exciting times. You want to find love in the world, all things that are obvious. But I think we also want to see generosity. I think that's incredibly important. And whether it's generosity to our environment, strategies that can improve it, or whether it's to people like our family has been to villagers living around the foot of Mount Everest, to make a difference to people and to the place that we live. Nothing could be better.
Yeah, well, that's awesome again in regards to the notion around stewardship. And I think Simon Bowen said it pretty well. It's like we have to witness it and leave it in a better place than what we found it. And we were lucky we had 3 generations on that expedition, and also the 20 plus countries and the unity that comes together when you are sitting on a table next someone from Bangladesh that's climbed 7 summits, or next to an activist in climate that's created films. I think when you have the time and the space to be able to have conversations, not just a meeting. There's no meetings on this expedition for 10 days. It's all conversations, and generally it's around the experiences that happen off ship, or at the end of the day, the expedition crew are all there sharing knowledge and wisdom, because a lot of scientists and researchers work on the ship for study. You might have a whale expert, or you might have a certain... Oh, your power went off down in the west? Oh, sorry, mate.
Gosh, it did a bit. Hang on a minute.
There we go.
There we go.
Good. I love it. This is a perfect segue into space, actually.
We're out here in the wilds.
I love it.
So I've got a trusty headlamp here, if anything else.
Fantastic, Peter. What I learned as well down there around this treaty, like when we have so much, we don't want to go too deep on this topic, but unity and what happens with the treaty down in Antarctica, and actually countries coming together to protect a place. Isn't it one of the only places that have this treaty between how many countries?
Well, it is the Antarctic Treaty, and in a lot of ways, and it's something we'll certainly talk about, it's an opportunity to really talk about a global form of governance in a way, and it's the only place that it's happened, and it's been really successful. So I think that's there to talk about that. It'll be pretty special. I mean, my light is flickering. It's solar electric,
I
guess the sun's gone down.
This is just perfect in regards to like a true explorer flinching with any technical glickups on the
Well,
way.
you got to have your headlamp. You know, you don't want to go anywhere without one of those.
Yeah,
Maybe Antarctica in the summer when we're down there, because it'll be well, you know, we'll have a light late into the night. There'll be a little bit of dark in the middle of the night, and then the sun comes up again.
totally. Well, I'm mindful of your time as well, Peter, and power usage in a hut in the middle of the West Coast. But we do have a few people, and in regards to they call themselves regular Joes, and I don't think anyone's a regular Joe in regards to how accessible this expedition and trip and experience is. We obviously had people from the age of 16 through to yeah, in their late 70s on this trip. My father-in-law was on the trip, and it's participation in regard and it's invitation in regards to what you want to participate in. But generally, it's extremely accessible from the way you get off the ship onto Zodiacs to the gear that's provided. So maybe talk through, yeah, you've been on 43. I'm sure you've traveled with a diverse group of expedition veterans to first timers.
The ship has a very experienced expedition team. Their role is to provide with information, and there's lots of expertise, whether they're experts in cetaceans or birds or geology or Antarctic history. They'll share a lot of that information, but they're also incredibly good getting us into incredible places. You know, very efficient systems. We'll have rehearsals for these, and then we'll, you know, rush downstairs, put on our overpants and our big jackets, our life jackets, our rubber boots, and get into the Zodiacs and be expertly guided ashore. And they are very experienced with people of all ages, whether they're young, whether you have maybe some issues with movement, they help. And it really is an incredible experience. So we'll cater to a whole variety of people would like to do. And so, you know, feel empowered, feel that you can do it, and get down there and get ashore and experience Antarctica, standing on the ice with all the great glaciers around you, the icebergs offshore, and maybe the blow of a whale in the distance.
I absolutely love it. And yeah, on to the expedition itself, which Peter has kindly agreed to come back down for probably his 44th expedition, with so many more stories to share, and also the experiences that he's doing this year. And we've also got a couple other people joining us, and I think this is the first time, extremely very special to have Damon Gameau. If anyone's seen That Sugar film or 2040 Regenerators, or his latest film, which is called The Future Council, which actually premiered on our last expedition, which is taking 12 teenagers around in a yellow hydrogen bus in Europe, asking some big questions around these big polluters. And it's actually gone incredibly well. It's in film theaters everywhere, and it's empowering this next generation. I have 5 beautiful kids myself, the Brady Bunch, who are going to shift this world in a green trajectory. I really, and the work that Damon's doing is absolutely incredible. Woman, I've been lucky enough to know him for the last 2 years, and Kelly Latimer. Kelly Latimer was a test pilot by trade. Got brought onto something called Virgin Galactic from Richard Branson to go, I think we can go to space. That's the new frontier. So she's the one that actually flew Richard and the first commercial aircraft tourism project to space. So she's been twice to space, and now she's excited to the other frontier in Antarctica and share so much. So maybe it's a reunion around some of the conversations that happened in the North Pole, and this outer worldly effect that astronauts talk about when they actually get up and they look back at Earth, and they're like, wow, it's small, and it's this effect when you come back to Earth. It's like, maybe there's more I can do and shift. So you get that type of feeling down in Antarctica, and astronauts or people that have been to space share a bit about that. There's obviously this guy down in the corner will help make sure that you get down there flying flat, hopefully. There's a few giggles. And Radek Sali, so Radek was the CEO behind Swiss Vitamins, an incredible entrepreneur, business person, but now leading a lot of impact ventures after exiting Swiss Vitamins. So he has Light Warrior Project. He's invested in a lot of climate rehabilitation in Australia and across the globe. He's behind Wanderlust, which you would have seen in Australia as well. And my wife, Sarah, who is ex-chief design officer at CommBank and helps run a lot of our research and community side of things. So we're so fortunate again for all Accor Plus Explorer to kind of share Peter Hillary and this incredible expedition experience down to Antarctica, 1st to the 10th of March, which is next year, which goes out of Ushuaia in South America. So most people will fly in. Buenos Aires is an absolutely fantastic place for a couple of nights of tango. It's not for the faint-hearted or vegetarians. It's a great place, and the Sofitel there is a great place to spend a couple of nights. We then fly down to Ushuaia to Pictures Chartered. It's exclusive. It's not made public as such, so you guys are definitely the first to see and hear about this journey with all these incredible and as we've charted it, it lets us help curate the incredible experience, both from where we go, how we have conversations, the community that's and by doing so we've got incredible pricing. So as you can see, here's some of the cabins. It's definitely not an expedition like Peter's 45 years ago. It's comfortable. Food is absolutely fantastic. The ship, Albatross Expeditions, you might have heard of Quark Expeditions, Magellan, all use exactly the same ship. It's comes out of the same shipyard, one of the most eco-friendly ships down there that have all that make it comfortable. As you can see, some of the pricing starts at 11,000 US, but for all Accor Plus Explorers on this call and also members, you get $1,000 US off. So you get literally a good 10% discount off the expedition. It's limited to 70 cabins we have remaining. And we look forward to having some hosted dinners and events and experiences leading up to the experience, and more conversations like this with probably Kelly Latimer, Radek as well over the next couple of months. So I hope everyone's had an absolutely epic time listening to Peter. We've got time for a few Q&As, which I've got here, but if anyone wants to put them in the chat as well, before Peter signs off for the night and turns the light off one last time. But Peter, a massive big thanks for sharing your time and wisdom and saying yes to coming down again and sharing that with another 160 epics coming to Antarctica.
No, thank you very much, Steve. I really look forward to it. And the great thing about it, I look forward to getting to know everyone who comes down on the ship with us, sharing meals at dinner and lunch, and to obviously going ashore and the reflections we all have when we have those experiences. So looking forward to sharing it with all of you.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's a couple of questions just coming through in regards to the insurances and brochures, etc. If you scan the QR code here or head through to, there's a link under the events page within your Accor Plus Explorer membership. We've also got a link on iFLYflat.com.au, who is on here from Accor Plus Explorer. Thanks for championing everything that we do over here at the Flights Club. I think we're going to sign off, Pete, because we've had enough of your time, and you need to probably a night's sleep before hiking tomorrow.
I'm heading out there. Don't you worry.
If anyone can just put a word or a sentence of what you got out of this, and a big thanks to Pete in the chat, that would be fantastic, and a round of applause for Peter tonight. So one word or a sentence would be great, and I'll pass these messages on to Peter after the call today. Thanks again, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Steve. Thanks, everyone. Good night.